Come, my brother in Christ, listen to my words today for the one who desires prosperity. You who have sought to be kind, honest, and upright before everyone. I respect your intention, and I know the weight you carry when your goodness is mistaken for weakness and you end up being too nice. Many times you give in just so you won't displease others, and in the end, you feel that you were not loyal either to your conscience, nor to your home or your business. Today I want to take you by the hand and guide your steps through a Christian and secure path. A path founded on the Word, which separates what is true goodness from what is merely fear of confrontation. I will show you how Scripture opens the doors of prosperity when the heart learns to set limits, protect what is holy, and say yes and no with righteousness. If this touches your spirit, remain here by my side. Before unlocking each key, let me present the thesis that guides it all. Being too nice seeks applause, but wisdom is born from the fear of the Lord. Fear seeks approval. Wisdom seeks the will of God. I will not explain everything now, because there are secrets that unfold step by step. Today we will talk about courage without shouting, firmness without harshness, prudence that reads time and intentions. You will understand why your prosperity depends on clear boundaries, why your rest depends on a clean conscience, and why your respect will not come from what you promise, but from what you uphold. I want to create an atmosphere of presence, so receive this notice with calm and faith. From now on, I will speak to you as if I myself were King Solomon, so that you may have a living experience with wisdom and not just a cold study. Imagine that I am seated beside you at dusk. The dust of the day has already settled, and what needs to remain will stand. What was straw will be carried away by the wind. Open your heart and listen. Let us pray for a few moments. Lord, you are the source of wisdom. Open our ears and seal our decisions in your fear. Give us discernment to say yes when it is just and no when it is holy. Strengthen our courage to do what must be done and cleanse us of the fear of displeasing. Amen. Now, allow me to read to you. Let us open the Bible in Proverbs chapter 2 verses 6 to 8, and then in Proverbs chapter 16 verse 9. I taught that it is the Lord who grants wisdom, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity. He guards the paths of justice and preserves the way of his saints. And I also declared that the heart of man plans his way, but it is the Lord who establishes and straightens his steps. What I meant to teach here was simple and profound. The right direction and the protection of the way are not born from the desire to be accepted, but from the hand of God upon those who walk in righteousness. I want to anchor your heart in a safe place. I will now read Proverbs chapter 14 verses 26 and 27. In the fear of the Lord there is strong confidence, and the children of those who fear him will have a refuge. The fear of the Lord is a fountain of life, to turn away from the snares of death. When the heart is rooted in the fear of God, the soul does not live for the applause of men. A silent confidence is born that does not need to prove anything. A fountain is born that wards off snares, including the snare of saying yes just so as not to appear harsh. This fountain sustains a God-fearing man on the inside before any results on the outside. And to calm the anxiety that comes when you decide to take a stand, I will open Proverbs chapter 1 verse 33. Whoever listens to wisdom will dwell secure, will live at ease, and will not dread evil. I wrote this to steady your mind. When you align yourself with wisdom, peace does not depend on what people say about you. Security does not depend on public approval. Serenity is not the fruit of escape, but of obedience. And it is in this serenity that a wise man learns to say the right word, at the right time with the right authority. Now let us enter into every detail of this principle that I want to teach you. But first, go ahead and like this video now and subscribe to the channel. Have daily encounters like this one to rest and to learn with me my principles for a prosperous life in the fear of the Lord. Stop pleasing out of fear. Trust in God produces courage. There is a moment when the heart needs to be confronted. I know the weight you carry when you accept in silence just so as not to disappoint. I know how many words you swallow, how many times you smile to avoid rejection. But understand this, that is not true kindness, and it is fear. and fear does not build the life of a wise man. It corrodes from within, drains strength, and opens the way for others to dictate the rhythm of your walk. I say to you, the Lord did not call you for this. The God-fearing man does not live enslaved to the opinion of others. He learns to walk with confidence because he knows there is an invisible fortress guarding his steps. The difference between pleasing out of fear and acting with firmness is the source from which you draw your security. If your foundation is in applause, you will be fragile like straw. If your foundation is in the fear of the Lord, you will be unshakable like the rock. I want to read to you. In Proverbs chapter 14, verses 26 and 27, I wrote that, "In the fear of the Lord there is secure confidence. The children of those who fear the Lord will have a refuge. The fear of the Lord is like a fountain of life that delivers from the snares of death." Notice with me. I did not say that confidence comes from the eyes of men. No, I said it comes from the fear of the Lord. This means that true courage is not born of popularity, but of reverence, not born of pleasing many, but of obeying the one. And I reinforce in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 19, wisdom strengthens more than 10 rulers in a city. I wrote this so that you would understand the conviction of a wise man grounded in the word outweighs the strategies of 10 leaders together, because wisdom does not depend on fragile alliances. It is born of deep convictions. Now think with me, how many times have you failed to take a stand because you feared what others would say? How many times have you postponed a decision, even knowing it was right because you wanted to avoid criticism? The God-fearing man needs to break this cycle. Your confidence must be in the Lord, not in the yes of others. When this principle takes root, practice is born. The courage to live the necessary displeasure is born. It is not about being rude, it is about being just. I want to open scripture again. This time in Proverbs chapter 19, verse 11. There I taught that good sense makes a man slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense. See well, I'm not saying to react on impulse, I'm saying to react by principle. It is not about proving who you are, but about remaining firm in what God said you must be. And it is also necessary to learn to live intentionally, not like someone who drifts through life. I will read to you in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 7 to 9. I said, "Go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a happy heart, for God has already approved your works. Live joyfully with the wife you love all the days of your fleeting life, the days that God has given you under the sun, for this is your portion in life." I was speaking of a spirit that does not postpone what is essential, that does not delay what needs to be done. I was confronting those who always live as if it were the first day, without learning that each day may be the last. Wise man, live as one who does not need to prove anything to the world. Govern your day with intensity and firmness, not to please others, but to please the Lord. This is the path of courage. This is the path of true prosperity. There is an important detail I need to reveal to you. Many times you think you are avoiding a problem, when in reality you are only postponing a confrontation that will come later, greater and more difficult. The man who lives to please ends up becoming a slave to the expectations of others. But the God-fearing man learns to act with courage at the right time. Not because he likes conflict, but because he knows that avoiding what is necessary destroys more than it resolves. I want you to understand that every decision delayed out of fear of criticism is a piece of life wasted. Every yes you say just so as not to appear harsh is a no you are giving to your purpose. Stop and think. How many opportunities have already passed because you were too busy pleasing others? How many times have you sacrificed your family, your health, or your peace because you didn't want to disappoint someone? The God-fearing man cannot live like this. You need to have the courage to set priorities, to protect what God has entrusted to you first. This courage does not mean explosions of anger or harsh responses. It means serene firmness. It means a heart that rests in the fear of the Lord, knowing that He guards your steps. A wise man does not need to be accepted in every circle. He only needs to walk in righteousness before God. And here is a secret. When you stop living to please, a powerful freedom is born within you. You no longer need to carry the burden of being everything to everyone. You learn that your identity is in the Lord and not in the eyes of others. This is the key that transforms your posture. You stop being a hostage to approval and become an example of silent courage. And it is this courage that will take you to the next step, because it is not enough just to stop pleasing. It is also necessary to learn to discern, to read the time, the environments, and the intentions, like a watchman who knows the seasons. And that is what I want to teach you in what comes next. Good malice means holy prudence. There is a word that many misunderstand, the word malice. For the world, malice is always synonymous with deceit and perversity, but in God's wisdom, there is something I call holy prudence. It is the ability to see ahead, to evaluate intentions, to measure times and movements. A wise man does not live by improvisation. He reads the seasons, notices the signs, understands the risks, and decides in a calculated way. This good malice is an invisible shield that protects life and opens the paths of prosperity. The man who fears God learns that naivety is costly. Those who throw themselves into any situation without reflecting end up stumbling into traps that could have been avoided. That is why I wrote that the prudent foresee evil. He does not wait for destruction to arrive to then react. He looks around, calculates, adjusts, prepares himself. This posture is not fear, it is wisdom. It is trust in God who guides the steps and gives discernment. I want to open scripture with you. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 27, verse 12. The prudent see danger and hide, but the inexperienced keep going and suffer the consequences. What I meant to teach here is simple. The wise man does not confuse courage with recklessness. He knows that God gives signs. That reality shows clues, that people reveal intentions in small gestures. The difference is in who chooses to pay attention. This principle may seem obvious, but many get lost because they don't want to seem suspicious, and so they become easy prey, as notice. It is not about paranoia. It is about care. When you sign a contract without reading the fine print, you are handing over your peace to unnecessary risks. When you partner with someone without observing character, you are building your house on sand. Prudence is raising walls before enemies invade. It is watching before sleeping. It is protecting before losing. And I also wrote in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 8. The wisdom of the prudent is to discern their way, but the folly of fools is to deceive themselves. This is one of the greatest revelations I left. The fool not only errs, he deceives himself. He prefers to believe in a comfortable illusion rather than face the truth that requires decision. But the man who fears God measures his steps. He knows that every choice has eternal weight, that every decision opens or closes doors. This holy prudence must be applied daily. When you analyze your business, you cannot act only by enthusiasm. You must evaluate data, study scenarios, perceive hidden risks. When you lead your family, you cannot only react. You need to discern influences, protect your children, take care of the atmosphere of the home. This is prudence in action. It is the good malice that protects and strengthens. I want you to reflect. How many pains could you have avoided if you had stopped for a moment to discern? How many wounds could have been spared if you had looked more attentively? How many losses would not have happened if you had waited for the right time? I tell you, prudence is not a brake. It is an accelerator, because it removes obstacles before they become walls. This is how the wise man lives, with open eyes, with a firm heart, with an attentive spirit. He does not let himself be carried away by illusions. He does not let himself be dragged by pressures, but he walks with discernment. He walks with reading of the scenario. He decides based on convictions and not impulses. This is good malice. This is holy prudence. There is an invisible force in word. They can heal, but they can also wound. They can build alliances, but they can also destroy relationships. Therefore, wise man, you must learn to speak in the right measure, not too little, so as not to be silent in the face of evil, nor too much, so as not to get lost in conversations that only feed confusion. Holy prudence is not only about seeing danger and avoiding it, but also about restraining the tongue when it wants to run free. Let's open together in Proverbs chapter 17, verses 27 and 28. There I wrote, "The one who restrains words has knowledge, and the man of a calm spirit is understood. Even the fool, when he is silent, is considered wise, and whoever closes his lips is considered intelligent." Notice the depth. Even the fool, when silent, seems wise. If this is true even for the fool, how much more for the man who fears God? When you control your tongue, you show that you also govern your heart. How many environments have already been contaminated by an innocent little gossip? How many homes have already been divided because someone spoke too much at the wrong time? How many businesses have already collapsed because words precipitated decisions without foundation? Holy prudence requires you to choose your battles. Do not answer always to please audiences. Do not get irritated just to show that you have a voice. Speak when necessary. Be silent when wise. And see how this principle is reinforced in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 16. The fool quickly shows his annoyance, but the prudent ignore an insult. I meant to teach that not every provocation deserves a response. The wise man does not waste energy on every arrow shot at him. Many times the greatest victory is silence, because silence disarms the mocker, while the hasty reply only feeds the fire of discord. But it is not just about being silent. It is about discerning the right moment to speak. The man who fears God does not use his mouth as an instrument of self-defense, but as a sword of truth. His words are not thrown to the wind. They are directed like accurate arrows. This requires self-control. It requires knowing how to wait. It requires knowing how to restrain oneself. And this same principle applies to bonds. The excess of words can open doors that were not yet ready to be opened. I want to read to you now from Song of Songs, chapter 8, verse 4. "Do not awaken love before it desires." I wrote this as a warning. Love is like a vineyard. It needs time, season, ripening. If you force it before the right time, you lose the harvest. So it is also with bonds and affections. Limits are needed. It is necessary to wait for the right time. Reflect with me. How many hearts have already been wounded because someone crossed emotional boundaries just not to seem cold? How many commitments have already been assumed too early just to please expectations? How many homes have already been shaken because bonds were exposed before maturity? The wise man protects his heart, knows how to wait, knows how to refuse, knows how to keep. And this is where holy prudence shows all its beauty. It is not only protection against external evil, it is also governance of what is born within you. It is the restraint of words. It is the patience of bonds. It is the clarity of limits. Whoever learns this does not live enslaved by the fear of displeasing, but governs his life with serenity, with firmness while with wisdom. It is this spirit that prepares the ground for the next steps, because he who knows how to restrain his tongue and guard his affections will be ready to learn to say no with authority. And if what I am sharing with you is building your life, know that much has already been shared here on this channel, and much more will still be daily. Leave your like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so. Saying no, financial and social limits. There is a principle that seems simple, but few have the courage to practice: the power of saying no. Many believe that generosity is always opening the hand, always yielding, always lending. But I tell you, wise man, that true generosity begins when you protect what God entrusted to your hands. The man who fears God knows that helping is not putting himself in ruin. He knows that goodness is not taking on burdens that do not belong to him. I want to read with you in Proverbs chapter 6, verses 1 to 5. I warned, "My son, if you have become surety for your neighbor, if you have shaken hands in pledge with a stranger, you have been trapped by what you said, ensnared by the words of your mouth. Free yourself, like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, like a bird from the snare of the fowler." See the clarity. I was not teaching to deny help. I was warning against the burden of carrying responsibilities that are not yours. When you become a guarantor for another person, you take on a risk that can ruin your own household. And this principle is repeated in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 15. Whoever puts up security for another will surely suffer, but whoever refuses to strike hands in pledge is safe. Here is the key: peace. The man who fears God must protect his financial peace. And to do this, he must have the courage to say no. Because every time you accept commitments you cannot sustain, you put at risk the bread of your family, the mission God gave you, and the purpose for which you must prosper. Many confuse compassion with irresponsibility. Helping your neighbor is not taking on debts you cannot control. Helping is teaching the way, guiding, giving wise counsel, offering opportunities that generate autonomy. The wise man knows when his hand must extend bread and when his mouth must extend counsel, because if you only give money, the need will return. But if you pass on wisdom, the solution multiplies. Notice another warning I left in Proverbs chapter 22, verses 26 and 27. Do not be one who shakes hands in pledge or puts up security for debts. If you lack the means to pay, your very bed will be snatched from under you. Man who fears God, understand. Each rash yes can cost even the rest of your home. You must guard the limits. You must protect what sustains your family. And I reinforce in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 18, one who has no sense shakes hands in pledge and puts up security for a neighbor. Notice, lack of sense. It is not lack of love, it is lack of wisdom. True love protects. True love does not put your family at risk to maintain appearances. Think with me. How many times have you lent just so as not to appear harsh? How many times have you said yes just to avoid criticism? How many times have you sacrificed what was essential to please someone who did not even care for their own responsibility? This is not goodness, it is fear, and fear does not prosper. The wise man learns to break free from this prison. I will also open Proverbs chapter 20, verse 16. Take the garment of one who puts up security for a stranger. Hold it in pledge if it is done for an outsider. What I meant to teach here is that there is real risk when you commit in another's name. Therefore, be careful. Have the courage to say no when necessary, because each no, spoken with wisdom, is a wall that protects your home. Each boundary set is a barrier against ruin, and this is the true path of prosperity. There is something many forget when they say yes to everything. Each new promise accepted without reflection steals time, energy, and focus from what really matters. Man who fears God, this is not just about money. It is about your mission. If you try to please everyone, you lose direction. If you try to carry everything, you abandon what is essential. I want to open in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 3. There I wrote, "It is to one's honor to avoid strife, but every fool is quick to quarrel." Notice the difference. The fool wastes his strength on useless disputes, chases after every outside expectation, involves himself in problems that are not his. But the wise man knows how to refuse. He knows how to turn away from what does not add value. He knows how to guard his energy for the work God entrusted to him. Wisdom teaches that no is not the absence of love. It is the protection of purpose. Every time you accept an unnecessary dispute, you divert from what your true mission is. When you yield only to keep appearances, you are feeding battles that do not belong to you. And this drains your strength, drains your peace. Think with me, how many times have you wasted energy on arguments that bore no fruit? How many days have you lost worrying about criticism that changed nothing? How many opportunities have you missed because you were too busy trying to solve what was not your responsibility? Wise man, each no you say in the name of purpose is a yes to your mission. It is necessary to learn to filter, to learn to say, "This I take on because it is within God's will for my life, that I refuse because it does not correspond to what the Lord entrusted to me." It is not harshness. It is clarity. It is not selfishness. It is faithfulness. The man who fears God knows he cannot be in every war because he was called to win in specific battles. This principle also protects your relationships. When you learn to set boundaries, your bonds become healthier, because people begin to respect what you value, and you no longer live hostage to the fear of losing acceptance. Those who know how to say no also know how to cultivate true ties, because true love does not demand your ruin. See how everything connects. At first, I showed you the importance of not committing to debts that are not yours. Now, I show you that the same principle applies to emotional and social commitments. Do not accept fights, arguments, and demands that only divert your route. Do not waste energy on battles God never asked you to fight. This is the maturity of a wise man. He is not measured by how many favors he fulfills, but by the clarity with which he guards his mission. The man who fears God is not the one who is everywhere, but the one who remains in the right place, with a focused heart, with firm hands, and with a guided mind, because he knows his life is not moved by applause, but by eternal purpose. Difficult decisions at work, culture, gossip, and removing the scorner. There is a truth that many leaders are afraid to face. There are situations where it is not enough to simply give guidance. It is necessary to cut at the root. The work environment, whether in your company, in your team, or even in your home, can flourish in peace or be contaminated in silence. It all depends on how you deal with the scorner, with the one who insists on mocking order, who sows seeds of division, who feeds gossip under a cloak of kindness. Wise man, I tell you. Ignoring this is allowing the poison to grow. I want to open with you in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 10. I wrote, "Drive out the scorner and strife will cease. Quarrels and insults will end." Notice the weight of these words. I did not say, have one more talk. I did not say, wait for them to change. I said, drive out, because there are people who are not willing to align. There are hearts that have already chosen to feed rebellion. And if you do not have the courage to remove them, the whole environment will suffer. Many fear this firmness because they think it is harshness, but I say it is not harshness, it is protection. The man who fears God knows that his responsibility is not to please everyone, but to guard the purpose. And sometimes guarding the purpose means removing the one who has become a source of strife. When you allow gossip to flourish, the fire spreads. When you cut it at the root, peace returns. This same principle I repeated in Proverbs chapter 26, verses 20 and 21. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. As charcoal to embers and as wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. See the picture. Gossip is fuel. Every malicious word is a spark. If you don't cut off the source, the fire never ends. Wise man, think now about the environment where you work. Think about the people who walk beside you. Have you noticed how a single malicious tongue is capable of contaminating many? Have you seen how gossip whispered in a tone of concern spreads distrust? That is what I was saying. The fire does not need great torches, just a spark repeated every day. But I tell you, it is not enough to just identify. It is necessary to act. The man who fears God needs the courage to confront, to correct, and if necessary, to remove. Because your leadership is not measured by how many people you keep close, but by the quality of the culture you sustain. The environment is worth more than numbers. How many leaders have failed because they clung to results and forgot character? How many homes have been destroyed because the scorner was tolerated in the name of apparent peace? Apparent peace is not peace. It is only silence before the explosion. And I say to you, wise man, if you have allowed gossip to remain in your team, in your family, or even in your relationships, know that you are watering the fire that will burn your own harvest. Have the courage to drive it out, not out of pride, not out of revenge, but out of protection. Because only then does the fire go out and peace is established. A throne is not established only with wealth, nor only with achievements. A throne is established with justice. Wise man, what upholds the authority of a leader is not only the results he presents, but the courage he has to make unpopular decisions when they are necessary, decisions that often bring tears, but that guard the integrity of the work. I want to open scripture with you. In Proverbs chapter 25, verse 5, I wrote, "Remove the wicked from the king's presence, and his throne will be established through righteousness." See the clarity. There is no way to sustain lasting leadership if you keep beside you those who corrupt, those who mock what is holy, those who feed on disorder. If you do not cut off what is wicked, your throne will waver, your leadership will weaken. And still in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 4, I counseled, "If the ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great errors to rest." Notice, The standard of leadership of a man who fears God is not explosion. It is not loss of temper. It is not shouting to try to prove authority. It is calmness. It is sobriety that stands firm even under pressure. Here is a secret that few understand. Cutting off the wicked does not mean acting in desperation. It means acting in justice. And remaining firm in your post does not mean accepting abuse. It means responding with the serenity that comes from the fear of the Lord. It is not revenge. It is direction. It is not loss of control. It is self-control. Wise man, understand. A leader who bows to the fear of losing acceptance has already lost the essence of his leadership, because he who rules by applause does not rule. He merely follows crowds. But he who rules by the fear of God stands firm, even when he must make solitary decisions, even when he must choose between being loved and being respected. How many environments have already been ruined because the leader did not want to confront anyone? How many families have already suffered because the father or mother preferred silence instead of correction? How many companies have fallen because they tolerated the wicked in the name of immediate profits? This is not the way of the man who fears God. I say to you, it is better to temporarily lose the applause of men than to permanently lose the approval of God. It is better to have few at your side, but who walk in righteousness, than many who walk in duplicity. The standard of leadership is this: firmness in what is just, serenity under pressure, courage to cut off what contaminates. And if you apply this standard, your throne will be established, not because you became harsh, but because you became just. Not because everyone agrees with you, but because God confirms your position. This is the leadership that prospers. This is the authority that remains. Get out of self-indulgence. Have discipline and self-government. There is a prison that many do not notice. It is not the rule of an external enemy, but the deceptive embrace of self-indulgence, the habit of treating oneself with excessive leniency, of justifying failures as if time would always fix them by itself. A wise man, I tell you, it is not the enemy outside that most paralyzes. It is the soft voice inside you that whispers, "Tomorrow I will do it. There is still time." But tomorrow does not exist without the firm rule of today. The man who fears God must understand that discipline is the key to freedom. Many think that discipline is prison, but discipline is the wall that protects the city. It is the order that sustains the harvest. It is the limit that guards the heart against the deceit of its own desire. Without discipline, even the greatest promise is lost, because there is no consistency to sustain it. I wrote in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32, "Better is the patient man than the valiant. Better is he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city." See the comparison. Conquering a city requires strength, strategy, and courage. But ruling oneself requires something even greater. It requires internal government. It requires the ability to say no to oneself when the soul asks for rest in the middle of the battle. This is the true victory. Many want great results, but do not want the discipline of small steps. They want to conquer cities, but do not want to tidy up their own house. They want to rule others, but cannot govern their own temper. Wise man, I tell you, it is useless to conquer outside if you are defeated inside. It is useless to wear the crown if you do not know how to control your own thoughts. And I reinforce this same lesson in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 8 and 9. Better is the end of a matter than its beginning, and better is a patient spirit than a proud spirit. Do not be quick to anger in your spirit, for anger resides in the bosom of fools. What I wanted to show here is that consistency surpasses excitement. Patience surpasses pride. The fool lives from outbursts and regrets. The man who fears God lives from constancy and progress. Pause to reflect. How many times have you started with enthusiasm but gave up halfway? How many plans were abandoned because patience ran out? How many relationships, businesses, or ministries collapsed because the heart preferred an outburst instead of discipline? This is the trap of self-indulgence, to believe that there will always be time to start again, when in fact time is built in today. Wise man, rule yourself. Make your heart a firm territory, your hands instruments of consistency. Your days, steps toward the promise. Do not live on bursts of energy that soon fade. Live on steady rhythms that build lasting foundations. This is the discipline that sustains prosperity. And when you assume this inner government, life changes, because you no longer depend on luck. You no longer wait for miracles to replace effort. You come to understand that each small act of discipline is a prayer answered, that each victory over yourself is a seed of authority to govern over others. And thus, man who fears God, you learn that the greatest enemy is not outside, it is inside, and the greatest throne you can occupy is dominion over yourself. There is a wisdom that few understand. Life is not sustained only by isolated decisions, but by the right rhythm of each season. Many want to enjoy during planting time. Others want to harvest without having prepared the field. Wise man, I tell you, the secret is not in doing everything at once, but in doing each thing in its time. I want to open with you Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verses 17 and 18. I wrote, "Blessed is the land whose king is of noble birth, and whose princes eat at the proper time, for strength and not for drunkenness. Through laziness the roof caves in, and through idleness the house leaks." See the clarity. It is not excess that destroys first, it is disorder. It is the lack of discipline in respecting times. It is the habit of giving oneself to pleasure when one should give oneself to diligence. The man who fears God learns that true prosperity is born from order. It is not just having resources, it is knowing how to manage them. It is not just having time, it is using it wisely. It is not just having gifts, it is disciplining them with consistency. Many live like princes who get drunk too early, who eat before the time, who enjoy when they should be building, and then wonder why the harvest did not come. And I insisted on this warning because I knew. Through laziness the roof caves in, through negligence the walls crumble. How many homes have already been ruined, not for lack of love, but for lack of discipline? How many businesses have collapsed not for lack of clients, but for lack of consistency? How many callings have been buried not for lack of gifts, but for lack of order? Wise man, I say, respect the seasons. In the time of planting, plant with strength. In the time of harvest, reap with joy. In the time of rest, rest with awareness. But never reverse the orders. Never use rest as an excuse for laziness. Never use pleasure as a justification for negligence. Never use tomorrow as a justification to abandon today. When you put everything in its place, life gains balance. There is no excess nor lack. There is constancy. There is government. There is security, because prosperity is not born of chance, but of order. And understand something profound. The self-control I showed you earlier is not limited to the control of emotions. It extends to time, to habits, to choices. A man who fears God rules the seasons. He does not let chance determine his routine. He does not surrender his schedule to laziness. He does not subject his family to neglect. This discipline of respecting the seasons is what sustains the harvest, what protects your house, what ensures that each seed planted blooms at the right time. Wise man, learn. If you want to enjoy abundance, you must first master the rhythm. You must first order your life before God. And then each season will be a step. Each time will be a blessing. Each step will be firm prosperity. Integrity that sustains prosperity. Wise man, there is something that sustains all other virtues. Without it, even the most intense effort becomes in vain. I am speaking of integrity. Many desire to prosper, but they try shortcuts. Many want to reap quickly, but sow seeds of injustice. I tell you, there is no true prosperity without integrity, because it is integrity that opens the right doors and closes the wrong ones. It is what ensures that the fruit does not rot before its time. I want to read with you in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 23. I wrote, "Differing weights are an abomination before the Lord, and dishonest scales are not good." See the image. Using two weights is acting with partiality, measuring one way when it benefits you and another way when it harms someone else. But the man who fears God has no need for hidden measures. He walks in clarity. He negotiates honestly, because he knows the hand of God blesses the just. And still in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 22, I taught, Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight. See the contrast. Lying may even bring quick gain, but it corrupts the heart and closes the gates of heaven. While faithfulness may seem slow, it draws the pleasure of God. And when the Lord is pleased, even what seemed small multiplies. The wise man must decide whether he wants momentary results or lasting prosperity, because lies and injustice may bring quick applause, but they are like quicksand. The more you step, the deeper you sink. Integrity, however, is like a rock, firm, solid, able to bear the weight of life, and thus it generates security for those who build upon it. I also want to open Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 7. I wrote, "Oppression may drive the wise to madness, and a bribe corrupts the heart." I was showing that even the one with wisdom can be lost if he does not watch carefully. Do not think you are immune. The human heart is deceitful, and so it must always be guarded. If you accept bribes, if you accept shortcuts, if you accept small corruptions, little by little your heart becomes contaminated. God-fearing man, reflect with me. How many times has the opportunity for a shortcut appeared before you? How many times did it seem easier to adjust the situation instead of facing it with truth? How many times did you think a small lie would make no difference? But I tell you, every small deviation opens cracks in the foundation, and a house does not fall suddenly because of a strong wind. It falls because the cracks were ignored. That is why I insisted so much in showing that integrity is not just a beautiful virtue. It is a pillar of prosperity. Those who walk in clarity sleep in peace. Those who speak truth walk without weight. Those who deal justly never fear being exposed, because their life is their own defense. This is the choice before you, wise man. You may live chasing shortcuts, running after gains that soon vanish, or you may choose to walk in integrity, trusting that faithfulness draws the favor of God, and that this favor opens doors no man can shut. This is the safe path. This is the foundation of true prosperity. Wise man, I say to you, there is something much more precious than abundant riches. It is the uprightness of the heart. Prosperity without integrity is not prosperity. It is disguised ruin. The man who fears God learns to value character above profit, because he knows that unjust gain may bring pleasure for a moment, but it leaves scars of pain for a lifetime. I want to open the scripture with you in Proverbs chapter 19, verse 1. I wrote, "Better is the poor who walks in his integrity than the perverse in speech and a fool." See the contrast. Better is the simple man who keeps his word than the one who accumulates possessions through lies, because true wealth is not measured by what you have, but by what you are before God. And in Proverbs chapter 28, verse 6, I repeated the same principle. Better is the poor who walks in his integrity than the rich who is perverse in his ways. See the emphasis. Twice I declared the same, because I knew men would be constantly tempted to sacrifice integrity in the name of gain. But I say to you, do not negotiate your honor. Do not trade your uprightness for profits that decay. God-fearing man, reflect. What good is it to increase wealth and lose peace? What good is it to gain possessions and lose sleep for fear of being exposed? What good is it to dress in riches while carrying shame in your soul? I say, there is no crown heavier than the crown gained through injustice. Think now about the paths you have taken. Are your financial choices guided by the fear of the Lord? Are your businesses founded on truth or on half words? Is your prosperity rooted in justice or in shortcuts? Wise man, this is the time to adjust the weights of your scales, to align your motivations, to place value above gain, and understand, when you choose integrity, it may seem like you are losing, but in truth you are sowing. Every time you choose truth, you are planting trust. Every time you refuse a shortcut, you are cultivating peace. Every time you keep your word, you are building a secure future. And in due time, the harvest will come. The man who fears God does not need to chase gain, for the favor of the Lord adds without sorrow. He prefers little with justice than much with corruption. He prefers firm steps to hurried runs. He prefers to sow in the right season and reap in the right season. because he knows the God who sees in secret will reward openly. This is the inheritance that remains, not full coffers, but a clean life. Not momentary applause, but a testimony that speaks for itself. Not the appearance of success, but the reality of peace. Wise man, if you keep this principle in your heart, your prosperity will be solid, because it will not be sustained by gold, but by truth. And gold may be lost, but truth will never be shaken. Love, bonds, and limits that protect the vineyard. There is a garden in every life, a sacred space where bonds, affections, and relationships are cultivated. This garden can flourish in peace, but it can also be invaded by weeds if there are no clear boundaries. Wise man, I tell you, whoever does not protect his vineyard will see his harvest compromised, because relationships without limits do not produce life, only exhaustion. I want to open with you in Song of Songs, chapter 4, verse 12. There I wrote, "A garden locked is my sister, my bride, a spring locked, a fountain sealed." Notice the image. A locked garden is not a lonely garden. It is a preserved garden, a space that cannot be trampled by anyone because it is too valuable to be trivialized. The God-fearing man needs to learn this. It is not harshness to limit access. It is wisdom, because what is precious must be protected. How many have been lost by opening their hearts to those not ready to honor them? How many families have been wounded because the doors were left open to undiscerning counsel? How many homes have been shaken because friendships and bonds entered without filters? I say, not everyone deserves unrestricted access to your time, your home, your intimacy. The garden must be closed. And I return to Song of Songs, chapter 8, verse 4, where I warned, "Do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." Here is another secret. It is not only about with whom to relate, but about when to relate. Each bond has its right time. If you awaken love before its time, you do not reap ripe fruit, only weariness. Wise man learn, even love needs limits. Even affections need time. Reflect with me. How many disappointments were born from haste? How many pains came because you gave trust before maturity? How many wounds could have been avoided if there had been prudence to wait? The God-fearing man does not confuse generosity with naivety. He loves, he gives himself, but he does so with discernment, knowing that even the most beautiful of feelings needs boundaries. And here is the beauty of wisdom. Limits do not drive love away. They preserve it. When you lock the garden, you do not suffocate it. You protect it. When you guard your vineyard, you do not prevent the fruit. You ensure it ripens without being stolen. The wise man knows that love is not an uncontrolled river. It is a sealed fountain that flows at the right time, in the right measure. God-fearing man, apply this in your relationship. In your marriage, establish limits that preserve the covenant. In your family, protect the environment against harmful influences. In your friendships, define boundaries that maintain loyalty. It is not about isolation. It is about preservation, because what is sacred must be cared for. And when you live like this, you discover that bonds do not become weaker, they become stronger. Because love that is protected flourishes with vigor. Affection that is guarded matures with firmness, and the garden that is locked bears fruit in abundance. Wise man, learn. It is not opening to everyone that strengthens your vineyard. It is protecting it with limits that makes the prosperity of relationships flourish. Wise man, it is not enough to protect the vineyard with walls and boundaries. It is also necessary to care for the way you speak within it, because words are like seeds. Some generate life, others produce division. The God-fearing man learns that every word spoken within his relationships carries the power to preserve or to destroy. I want to open with you in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 13. I wrote, "To answer before listening, that is folly and shame." Notice the clarity. Many rush to speak without even understanding the other's heart. This is like uprooting a plant before seeing if it was about to bear fruit. When you answer before listening, you do not build dialogue. You only raise invisible walls within the garden. The wise man learns to listen, to welcome, to discern before reacting. And still in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 9, I taught, "Whoever covers over an offense promotes love, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends. See the contrast. Love is preserved when we know how to cover certain faults, but gossip destroys even the deepest bonds. God-fearing man, notice, it is not covering to pretend nothing happened. It is covering to protect, to give space for forgiveness, to prevent the wound from becoming contamination. Think with me. How many families were divided because small faults were exposed in circles of conversation? How many friendships were lost because mistakes were spread instead of treated with love? How many marriages were corroded not by lack of love, but by lack of wise communication? I tell you, if you want to preserve bonds, you must learn to guard your tongue. You must speak in a way that heals, not exposes. The wise man understands that communication is not just speaking, it is knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. Sometimes silence is more healing than 1,000 explanations. Sometimes a gentle word closes wounds that a shout would only open even more. God-fearing man, govern your mouth as one governs a garden, because every word is a seed that will one day bear fruit. I hope you are seeing the value of my counsel for your life, wise man. Here I will always translate for you the wisdom that is in the Word of God. That's why, if you still haven't left your like on this video, do it now, even if you are not used to doing so. And also subscribe to the channel. Do this as a sign of your commitment to walk a straight path and constant learning. Now, reflect on what we were talking about. Have you been using your words to water love or to spread strife? Have you been a source of trust or of distrust? Has your communication protected your home or exposed your family? Wise man, the test of your spiritual maturity often does not lie in great deeds, but in small conversations. And I tell you, if you want your vineyard to prosper, take care of what you speak. Protect your bonds from the poison of gossip. Choose to cover in love rather than expose in vanity. Learn to listen before responding, and let each of your words be like water that waters, and not like fire that consumes. This is the way to live in love with holy limits, because true bonds are not sustained only with feelings, but with conscious choices. And the greatest of these is the choice to speak in a way that protects. Wise man, if you apply this, you will discover that your vineyard will flourish in peace, and that your relationships will be like a locked garden where every fruit ripens safe and in abundance. Path of communion and practice. Wise man, I want you to pause with me now, not just to listen, but to examine yourself before the Lord. Up until now, I have spoken to you about courage, prudence, boundaries, discipline, and integrity, but all of this must leave the realm of understanding and enter the realm of practice. That is why I want to lead you into a brief communion. Close the eyes of distraction and open the ears of your heart. I ask you, in what area of your life have you been just a nice guy? Where have you been saying yes when you should have said no? Is it in business, where you accept commitments that drain your strength? Is it in relationships, where you open doors to those who should not have access to your heart? Is it within yourself, where you give in to laziness or complacency that robs your discipline? God-fearing man, answer this before yourself and before the Lord. And now I want to give you a path, not a burden but an exercise. 7 days, just 7 days to put into practice what you have learned. Each day will be an opportunity to exercise the boundaries, prudence, and integrity that sustain true prosperity. On the first step, choose one boundary for today. Remember what I wrote in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 3. It is honorable for a man to avoid strife. Look at your life and find a discussion, a dispute, an unnecessary demand, and say no to it with respect. You will see how peace is born when honor prevails. Then examine your alliances. In Proverbs chapter 12, verse 26, I declared, "The righteous is a guide to his neighbor, but the way of the wicked leads them astray." Review 3 key relationships in your life. Ask yourself, who has brought me closer to God? Who has strengthened my purpose? And who has drawn me away from the fear of the Lord? Keep the ties that build you up and set boundaries for those that mislead you. Now look at your finances. In Proverbs chapter 11, verse 15, I warned, "Whoever puts up security for another will surely suffer." And in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 16, I reinforce that whoever pledges for strangers loses even their garment. Wise man, choose one reckless favor you have been carrying and replace it with a gesture of wisdom. Instead of lending what compromises your peace, offer counsel, direction, or opportunity. In the fourth exercise, examine your team, whether at work, at home, or among friends. I told you in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 10, "Cast out the scoffer, and contention will leave." Find today a source of contamination, a gossip that needs to be stopped, a harmful influence that needs to be corrected, and, if necessary, have the courage to remove what destroys the peace of the environment. In the fifth step, turn your gaze inward. In Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32, I declared that greater is he who rules himself than he who conquers cities. God-fearing man, set aside 30 minutes of your day for a non-negotiable task. No distractions, no pauses. Just you, your discipline, and the work that must be done. And repeat this for 7 days. You will see how your inner government is strengthened. In the sixth exercise, take care of your words. In Proverbs chapter 17, verses 27 and 28, I taught that even a fool is considered wise when he keeps silent. Practice for a day answering only after listening fully. Listen before you speak. Write down what changed in your conversations. Notice how strategic silence opens doors that impulse closes. And finally, turn to your relational vineyard. In Song of Songs, chapter 4, verse 12, I described, "You are a garden locked, a fountain sealed. Today, close a breach." It could be a poorly guarded password, an improper access, an exposed agenda, a crossed boundary. Protect what is precious, preserve what is holy, and discover how love flourishes when it is guarded. Wise man, if you commit to these 7 steps in 7 days, you will not only hear wisdom but practice it. And I assure you, each boundary set will be a wall, each guarded tie will be a fruitful vineyard. Each decision made in fear of the Lord will be a firm step toward true prosperity. Path of courage, prudence, and prosperity. Wise man, we have reached the point where all the lessons meet. I have shown you that being just a nice guy is to live in search of approval, to get lost in fears and in guilt. But to fear God is to live in the fear of the Lord. And from that fear comes courage, come boundaries, comes true prosperity. I want to reinforce in your heart what I wrote in Proverbs chapter 14, verses 26 and 27. In the fear of the Lord, there is strong confidence, and his children will have refuge. The fear of the Lord is a fountain of life, to escape from the snares of death. See, it is not the acceptance of men that brings confidence. It is not the applause that guarantees refuge. It is the fear of the Lord. He is the fountain of life. He frees from the invisible snares that imprison those who only wish to please. And throughout this journey, you saw with me that prudence creates boundaries. Without prudence, life is lost in illusions. But with prudence, each step is established. You also saw that integrity sustains prosperity, because without integrity, even gold turns to dust. But with integrity, even the little multiplies. And finally, you learned that true love is preserved with boundaries. Because healthy bonds are not born of haste or naivety, but of protection and the right timing. God-fearing man, understand, courage is not living without fear. Courage is living without being a slave to fear. Prudence is not living suspiciously. It is living prepared. Integrity is not losing opportunities. It is guarding doors that will never close. And love is not giving yourself to everyone. It is preserving yourself to give the best to those God has entrusted into your life. Now I want to pray with you. Let's open together in Proverbs chapter 2, verses 6 to 8. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity. He guards the paths of justice and preserves the way of his saints. And also in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Lord, I now pray for this wise man, for this wise woman who listens to me, that they may receive from you discernment to say yes and no with righteousness, that they may find courage to make the hard decisions, that they may not get lost in guilt nor in fears, but that they may walk in the peace of your Spirit. Guard their homes, protect their bonds, strengthen their hands at work, and establish their steps in purpose. And I want to leave you with a commitment. Write now in the comments a no that you will practice today, and a boundary that will protect your home or your business. Not just as words, but as a seal before the Lord. Because when we declare, we commit. And when we commit, heaven confirms. God-fearing man, live with courage, with prudence, with integrity, because true prosperity is not in pleasing everyone, but in walking in the fear of the Lord, who is the fountain of life and the guardian of your story.